ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तां सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललित श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिंधुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Please forgive me, Prabhuji. I accidentally closed this thing. Hare Krishna. Can you hear me, Prabhuji?
I can hear, Prabhu. Yeah, I was finding the joke.
Okay. I'm so sorry. I by mistake clicked the wrong button. Okay. I'll continue with the prayers. Nashta नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिके। मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुदीनतारिणाम्। I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, the deliverer of the fallen soul. His mercy turns the dumb with eloquent speakers and enables the lame to cross mountains. I seek the blessings of all the Vaishnavas. I seek forgiveness for any transgressions I may commit while speaking. So today we are reading from chapter 7, Further Inquiries by Vidura, from the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is called Status Quo. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Verse number 15. Vidura Uvacha. Sanchinnah Samshayo Mahyam Tava Suktasina Vibho Abhayatra Ubhayatrapi Bhagavan Mano Me Sampra Dhavati. So let's go through the translation. Vidura said, O powerful sage, my lord, all doubts about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entities have now been removed by your convincing words. My mind is now perfectly entering into them. Purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The signs of Krishna or the signs of God and the living entity is so subtle that even a personality like Vidura has to consult persons like sage Maitreya. Doubts about the eternal relationship of the Lord and the living entity are created by mental speculators in different ways. But the conclusive fact is that the relationship of God and the living entity is one of the predominator and the predominator. The Lord is the eternal predominator and the living entities are eternally predominator. Real knowledge of this relationship entails reviving the lost consciousness to this standard, and the process for which revival is devotional service to the Lord by clearly understanding from authorities like the sage Maitreya. One can become situated in real knowledge, and the disturbed mind can thus be fixed on the progressive path. very short and very, very focused purport by Prabhupada, has a lot of meaning. If you really look at it, in one way, there is not much to speak. The other ways, there's everything else to speak. So, I really don't know how to handle this topic. So I thought, why is Vidura saying this? Why is he saying all his doubts are being cleared? I know the speakers from the previous, verses have talked about it multiple times and clarified it. But, I want to go through that again quickly. This entire thing, further inquiries by Vidura means Vidura is inquiring Maitreya Muni. And what were his inquiries? There were two types of inquiries. One inquiry was about Ishvara and the other inquiry was about Jiva. So, how is the Lord who is spiritual, Chin, Matrasya, and transcendental Nirgunasya be connected with the material gunas? How can the Lord who is unchangeable, Avi Karanaha, perform actions that indicate change? Impelled by the desire, children play. But the Lord is self-satisfied. Sattva Swataha trapta, without desire, and detached, nirvata. Then why does he create, maintain, and dissolve the universe by his Maya Shakti? Two wonderful questions about Ishwar. So the Lord is spiritual and he is nirguna. He is transcendental. If that is the case, how is he getting connected to the gunas? And how the Lord who is unchangeable seems to be changing, like he seems to be born, he seems to be growing up, he seems to be having very similar pains like the mortals, the conditioned souls. How is that even possible and how do we understand this? And then, the Lord himself, he is self-satisfied. So there is no desire. And then he is also detached. Then why does he create and maintain this material world? So two important questions. Now let us look at the questions that he asked about the jivas. How does the pure soul become engaged in these signs? The soul, which is also transcendental like the Lord, which is also full of, uh, Satchit and Ananda, why is it that it becomes engaged in these signs? Why does it get immersed in it? Why does the living entity suffer in spite of the Lord's present in his heart? The Lord very clearly says, that actually in Bhagavad Gita, he says, I am, as my special mercy, I am there with the living entity in the heart. So that is a special mercy he is giving. Why is it then the living entity is suffering in spite of the Lord's presence? My mind is illusioned and I request you to clear that. So Vidura is a very, very calm person. He is not passionate. He is not in ignorance. He is a very knowledgeable person. He is a Bhagavata also, Mahabhagavata. That sort of a person here is saying, my mind is illusioned. And now, Maitreya Muni, please, my Lord, that's what he says. Oh, powerful sage, my Lord, clear my doubts. Why is it this happening? Why am I, going through this bewilderment? This actually reminds us of Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna is also very, very realized. He is well knowledge, and such an Arjuna who is actually the companion of the Lord life after life as Narayan. He is the Nara, and we know who Narayana is. And even he gets bewildered right at the crucial time, very crucial time. The war is about to begin. Arjuna gets these doubts. Can you ever think? This is like we are trying to go to the exam and last minute we are looking at important questions. Oh my God, now I messed up. I don't know. I forgot this answer. It's very similar to that. And these are not normal people like or mundane people like me. These are elevated souls. Their intellect, their IQ is all way there. That sort of people, how can they become bewildered? Because they're trying to understand the Lord. And that is what it is. So what does Maitreya say about this? Maitreya says it is illogical that some say the Lord is overcome by illusion, yet he is unconditioned. This is against all logic. The Lord is above all of this. The Lord cannot be overcome. He may look like that, but he will never be overcome. The problem is Atma Viparyaha. That is the word. What is this? This is the misidentification. The misidentification of the soul that it is the body and not the transcendental soul, like the Lord. It doesn't understand. Or because of this misunderstanding, the soul is thinking that, I'm not a part and parcel of the Lord, but I am the body. And that is why the attachment with material things happen. Distress of the living entity is due to misidentification alone. There is no factual background to it, just as one sees one head cut off in a dream. We talked about this a few days ago. Like how when you are seeing your head cut off and you're feeling that grief coming through you, then it is surely not your head that is being cut off, but it's your dream that is telling you that your head is being cut off. That is illusion. You wake up, the dream is over, and then you can, even after the dream is over and you wake up, there is going to be a few, like half a day gone. Your mood is gone. You're feeling so down. Oh, nobody cares about me, blah, blah, blah. All of that. Now, the example that was given for this was the moon and the reflection of the moon. The moon is there. It's very stable. It is very still. It is calm and nothing else is happening to it. But the reflection on the water depends on the wind. If there is no wind, clear reflection of the moon looks exactly like the moon. In fact, the shining is much better if it's very clear water. Then if there is a soft wind, you can see small ripples. The moon is looking like it's getting distorted, but it's okay. But then there is rough waves coming up because of rough winds. Then it looks like the moon is completely disturbed. And if you try to calm this reflection of the moon, there is no way you can calm it. Whereas if you just decide to look up, you can see that the moon is very calm, serene. It's not affected by all these things happening on the planet Earth. So what is the solution for all of this? Maitreya Muni says there are three parts to the solution. The solution is bhakti and devotional. So bhakti vanquishes this misconception of misidentification. That misconception of self-identity can be diminished by Lord Vasudeva's mercy, by the process of devotional service in the mode of detachment. So that is how you do it. Bhakti has this power to remove all the misconceptions. Service vanquishes miseries. Why do we do service? Because it vanquishes all these miseries. When the senses are engaged in serving Lord Hari, all the miseries are vanquished. Why? When you are serving the Lord, doing service, your mind is focused on the service. Your senses are focused on the service. Now, during the service, you are consciously, diverting your mind using intelligence not to look at material objects. You do not want to engage in sense enjoyment at that point of time. Even if somebody puts a rasgulla on the side, you're not interested in it because you want to get your service done. And so what happens? The service to Lord has the power to vanquish all the miseries. So during that time that you're doing, you will not be having any miseries. It feels like Vaikuntha. Now, if you continuously do it, uninterrupted, I forget that verse, ahaitukya aprateya. So you do your devotional service unmotivated, uninterrupted, then you will have no miseries. Finally, hearing and chanting. The Lord's qualities vanquish all material miseries. So continue to hear and chant. What to speak about those who attain the attraction for serving the Lord's lotus feet. So if we continue to hear and chant, it also has the qualities of vanquishing all material desires. Now, compare this to those who have already acquired the taste to serve the Lord's lotus feet. So, you know, because all of this was said to Vidura, he's comprehending all of this and he's summarizing all of this. And then he says, Maitreya Mahamuni, you're powerful, you're my Lord. You have cleared the doubts. He in fact says, all my doubts about the Lord and Jiva have been cut off by the weapon of convincing words. So there are these knots in my heart, and these knots you have cut it off with your words, and my mind is entering into that. So again, this is a comparison in Bhagavad Gita where the banyan tree is given, and how in the reflection, perverted reflection of the banyan tree, the living entities are jumping from one branch to another, and then slowly and steadily accumulating more and more knots in their heart. The more knots you have in your heart, the more hard your heart becomes. Now, how do you cut these knots? You cut these knots using the knowledge and using bhakti. With these two things, you can clearly cut the knots and liberate yourself. That is exactly what Maitreya Muni, Vidura is saying, your wisdom, your words has conclusively, established the relationship and cleared my doubts. You have cleared my knots. Now, if we think a little more, you know, in Bhagavad Gita, 10th chapter, the same thing happens. In the 9th chapter, the Lord has given Arjuna all the, confidential knowledge. And in the 10th, the Lord is talking about, like his opulences. And then in verse number 12 and 13, what does Arjuna say? Because the entire Bhagavad Gita is Arjuna had questions, doubts. So he has been asking, and it took Krishna 10 chapters where Arjuna, stage by stage, he realized. The first stage, he realizes that, hey, I was thinking, Krishna is my cousin. I was playing with him. He's my friend. I did so many things with him. I feel ashamed. He's like the Lord. And then he accepts him as the spiritual master. And then at every stage, every few, things that Krishna is revealing, Arjuna's bewilderment is going away and he is in awe and respect. Now, in this chapter, 10th chapter, 12th and 13th shloka, what is Arjuna saying? Param Brahma, Param Dhama, Pavitram Paramam Bhavan, Purusham Shashwatam, Divyamadi Devam Vibhum, Ahustva, Ahustva, Maharshiya Sarve, Devarshi, Naradas-tada, Asito Devalo Vyaso, Swayam Chaiva Bravishyame. So, here Arjuna is very clearly saying, what is he saying? You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the ultimate abode, the purest, the absolute. You are the eternal, transcendental, original person, unborn, the greatest. So this is the first verse number 12. He is saying, you cleared all my doubts. And now I'm at a stage where I am able to understand who you are. I have no misconceptions. I have no misconceptions about who you are. And consequent to that particular understanding is that there's no misconception about my identity. That is what he's saying. Then he says, not that he didn't have all this knowledge, he had it, but it depends on who is giving the knowledge. So he says, all the great sages such as Narada, Asita, Devala, Vyasa confirm this truth about you, and now you yourself are declaring it to me. So it's not that Arjuna did not know. He has heard, he has read, and he has conversed with other devotees. And so he knows this. But knowing and actually understanding it are two different things. Once you understand it and you imbibe it, then that is a different thing. Now you are removed of all your things. So Arjuna is very clearly saying that, you are revealing it to me. You are showing yourself to me. Now I know who you are, and all the doubts are removed by you declaring. Verse number 14, he says, O Krishna, I totally accept as truth all that you have told me. Neither the demigods nor the demons, O Lord, can understand your personality. So that's the other thing. You know, we can understand the Lord in broad sense, maybe a little more in depth, but there is nobody who can understand the Lord completely. That is not possible. You know, we are, we are Anu, the Lord is Vibhu. So how can we understand? The Anu doesn't have the capacity to understand the Vibhu. So, it is nice to understand, but then it is better to, continue serving the Lord in whatever rasa that we have that relationship with. Verse number 15, indeed, you alone know yourself by your own internal potency. O Supreme Person, origin of all, Lord of all beings, God of gods, Lord of the universe. Arjuna is totally immersed in, he's overwhelmed actually. He's so much overwhelmed that he is, saying these words, he's saying, you are the greatest, nobody else other than you know yourself. You are the origin of all, you are the God of all gods, and you are the Lord of this universe. So he's stating the factual position of the Lord. And that is what we need to understand. Verse number 16, he says, oh, now the topic changes. So, he's saying, please tell me in detail of your divine appliances by which you prevailed all these words. The same thing is happening with Vidura. Until now, Maitreya Muni has explained all the things that, you know, he needs to understand. And because of that, what does Vidura say? I have understood everything. Thank you for that. Now I have a few more questions. And he will go on asking. I will not dwell into that because that is topic for tomorrow and so many other days. Now let us look at this. If we go back to the uh, purport, the science of Krishna consciousness, the science of Krishna or the science of God and the living entities is so subtle that even a personality like Vidura has to consult persons like Maitreya. So this is another thing we need to understand. So there is always, particularly when you are in doubt, there is you need the humbleness, and you need to go and seek out from somebody who knows. And that is what Vidura is doing. Vidura himself is a Mahabhagavata. In spite of that, what is he doing? He is going to Maitreya Muni. And Maitreya Muni is explaining to him. And see the beauty. Maitreya Muni could have been puffed up. Oh, somebody like Vidura is coming to me, I will teach him. He didn't think like that. What is Maitreya Muni saying? Maitreya Muni is also humble. And he is actually telling Vidura all the details. He is giving him. This is very similar to Parikshit Maharaj and Sukadeva Goswami. They are sitting opposite to each other. Parikshit Maharaj is somebody who has seen the Lord in the mother's womb. He himself is realized. And then Sukadeva Goswami is another self-realized. So these two are sitting where Sukadeva Goswami is teaching or explaining to Parikshit Maharaj. You can look at it, all the other conversations that we are embedding in, like the sages of Naimisharanya asking Shaunakadi Mahamunis asking, I forget, Shuka Goswami,
So the
not
Goswami.
Sukha, Suta Goswami. Even there, it's not that they are not aware. Thank you, Prabhu. It's not that they are not aware. They're all aware. They all have it. But these are devotees, Tushan Tita, Raman Tita. So when devotees of the Lord meet, what do? They talk about the Lord. They sing about the Lord. They do kirtans. And if they have questions, they inquire and they clear those doubts. That is exactly what is happening here. Doubts about the eternal relationship of the Lord and the living entities are created by mental speculators in different ways. So this is the other important thing we need to understand. Mental speculators, Mayavadis and others. What do? They create this impression that, oh, we are all God. We are small parts of the God. It's just that we have forgotten. Once we revive it, we can go merge with the Lord. So this is the confusion that is created by speculation. Why? Because they do not know what is there all the way up. All they know is what they're concocting. This concoction can take many, many ways, many, many styles. Some of them become atheists. They say, oh, there is nothing. You have only one life. Enjoy it, brother. And others are there. Oh, you've taken so many lives. You don't have to take any more. You become the Lord yourself. These are the things. We need to be careful. We need to talk to those people who have it. Just like the perverted reflection of the banyan tree, there is the Bhakti Lata which is coming all the way from the spiritual world in the form of our lineage. It comes from, Brahma, Narada, Vyasa, so on until Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then Bhakti Vinod Thakur, all the way down to Srila Prabhupada. So, if one is a perverted reflection, the other one is the true Bhakti Lata. Catch hold of that Bhakti Lata, and then, we can all reach, we can understand and we can serve the Lord and we can reach the Lord. So I will stop with that. I'm sorry. If you have any questions or if you have any clarifications, or if I did any mistakes, please correct me. Thank you, everyone.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for nice summary, actually, for all the answers that Vidura, sorry, Maitreya gave. Um, yeah, I mean, when I was reading this translation, Prabhu, I mean, one thing, I mean, you also mentioned about it. I mean, all the personalities, right, in the Bhagavatam. I mean, I think I mean, the translation says the living entities have now been, I mean, the doubts
Mm-hmm.
about the Supreme Lord and the living entities now have been removed by your convincing words.
Yes.
I think that got stuck to me. I mean, convincing words, because when a when a devotee speaks, right, to somebody,
Yes.
so I mean, the conviction or the way they will
Mm-hmm.
understand is based on the how
Yes.
we are how the devotee is conveying that message. For example, a pure devotee, he says, I mean, from his heart, right? It's not from mouth, because he
Yes.
has realized that thing, right? So then it gives a big impression. It is not a what do you call? Um,
Mm-hmm.
it is not a Hindu mythology or something. It is actually it
Yes.
happened when we are from when we are from a great devotee, right? I mean, it doesn't look like for us. It is a story or something. It is actually a real thing that happened in front of us, right? I mean, they will take us to that past times, and we will be there during that 1 hour or 2 hours class. So because they have that purity and the conviction, right? So they thorough in the scriptures, and of course they have the conviction in the what they're speaking. So I think, yeah, here I mean that stuck to my
Mm-hmm.
mind, because Maitreya, I mean, the way he was giving those things to Vidura, right, very convincing
Yeah.
messages. I
Yeah,
mean,
Prabhuji.
it comes through the realizations of that devotee. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, Prabhuji. Wonderful point, Prabhuji. That is true. Like I didn't speak about it, and you brought it up. Mm. We've seen this so many times, like you said, when Maharaj or somebody, in fact, on Saturday we had, uh,
Gauranga
you
Prabhu.
know, Gauranga Prabhu, and he was speaking so, the thing is the same thing. If I say, it'll look like humbug because I have not realized, I have not understood. I am probably repeating, parroting it. So it doesn't have the same effect. The same thing, if even if they speak one line, it has so much effect on us, and people get inspired by that. That few words that they speak, people get inspired. Whereas somebody like me speaking hours and hours, nobody gets changed. So that is the difference. When a pure devotee speaks, it has, you know, a lot of effect on the heart. It convinces because we know that's the truth that is coming out. Whereas when I speak, we all know I've not experienced it, but I'm just saying it. Maybe a little colorful words I add, but colorful words doesn't make anyone convinced. And thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any questions?
Low attendance today. I think
Yes,
devotees
Prabhuji.
yesterday, Radha and India Day.
Yeah,
So
yeah, no problem, Prabhuji. So I think we can end if you're okay. Yeah. So, Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhobhya evcha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namananta koti